The seagulls follow trawler. It's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you very much.
Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
It's the Monday Club on a Tuesday in the afternoon, not at night. Nothing's ever straightforward with us, Jonathan. I've got to say, before I can even get started, Scott Howe in the comments, that intro makes me want to get on it. That made me laugh, mate. That made me laugh a lot. That is, I know where you're coming from, mate. I tend to do get on it after that intro tune as well, as some very clever people have noted in the comments of late. Get a grip. Who cares? Anyway, it is the all-new Look Monday Club, which is always going to be featuring Jonathan every Monday from now on. Even on a Tuesday on some occasions, every Monday gets cancelled. Jonathan, how the devil are you, mate?
Oh, I'm not too bad at all. I mean, we are in this sort of multiverse week between Christmas and New Year. Nobody knows what day it is, really. It could be Monday for all anybody knows it. It's Monday somewhere in the world, surely.
I bet you any money because Celtic News now, they've just tweeted the link to Boyce'S Monday Club. I bet you half of Twitter that have seen it have went, fucking hell, it's only Monday today. I thought it was Tuesday, you know? That'll have confused quite a few people, I suspect. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Not a clue what day it is. Rewatching the sort of Celtic highlights from the St Johnstone game and generally tried to identify what day that was and just couldn't do it. I think they played on Sunday.
Sunday, yeah, that sounds about right. So let's say Sunday. The last few days have been a bit of a blur.
Everyone's flying in the comments. Everyone seems in good spirits as well. Kieran, Hill boys. Daniel, MC, Merry Christmas troops. Love it, mate. Love it. Is it no Friday, says Paul? Maybe. I generally don't know. Let's get the new editions in and then get going again. We are going to be looking at new editions, and Bhoycie Bus was created just so the driver could get Bluetooth. Well, yeah, let's say that. Yeah, why not? Anyway, right, let's get into the football. Now, Jonathan, we know a lot of podcasts. I don't just mean Celtic podcasts. I think podcasts in general, especially when they're covering football, they like to be a bit Nostradamus, Jonathan, and claim that I've always said this, I've always said that, and now it's coming to fruition. But the Bhoycie bus is going to do a bit of that today because Abada scored 2 goals as a centre forward. It's been discussed on board the bus, is it not, Jonathan? I'm pretty sure the idea of Abada up top was there. So yeah, we got something right for a change. We're buzzing with that. It doesn't happen often.
That's 1-0 to the good guys.
What did you make of Abada though? First and foremost, his goals. That's the easiest thing to look at. I took from his goals, someone who I think is definitely going to evolve into a more natural centre forward. He looks more confident up there. I think the first one, it's a really great first time finish, albeit he's had to go, which was saved by the keeper. But then he follows in the shot. That's the brilliant thing. Wee bit of desire. I like that. And he gets his just rewards. But his actual technique and the way he's trying to take that first shot, he then does something very similar for his second goal. Runway and sort of hooks the shot the other way first time. And the runs that he's making in the box are going to give our creative players plenty of options. We've seen the difference in that Celtic side when Kyogo's runs are missing from the team because of injury or whatever. And I'm beginning to think right now, obviously we're still to be excited by the potential arrival of the 3 guys for the J-League. Of course, Maida's, by all accounts, the top scorer in the J-League and an even better striker than Kyogo. That's what I've read. And that's why Jim Brown's getting excited about unveiling the Japanese trio. But right now, from what I've seen, I think Abada's maybe been underused up front. I'm not trying to be negative, don't worry. I just mean, such was his display. I was quite impressed by him. What was your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was really impressive. I thought actually most of the team were extremely good. Abada's not really had much opportunities to play through the middle in light of the injury crisis we've had over the past number of weeks. And I think it did pay dividends putting him through the middle because he is an intelligent player. That much is quite clear to see. You can see him making the runs in and out. His finishing leaves a little bit to be desired, but he's only 19 years old and he is a natural winger. And I think when you look at the other options that you've got, that you could put up front when you've not got your Kyogos, your Giacomakis or your Ragetis fit, you would probably say Abada is the natural fit to go up there until one of them players come back.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely fair comment. And I think for Abada, what it's done is we go into a winter break, right, which obviously has been brought forward. I think it was a sensible decision. If I'm being completely honest, I don't think there will be fans in football when we come back from it. But at least then the clubs can look at it and say, well, we did give it every chance that we possibly could. And I think the good thing is Abada going into this break, see, I go off on tangents all the time. Abada going into the break, the good thing is he's going in now full of confidence, full of beans, if you're watching Souness. And I think that confidence that we're seeing from Abada will be key for the second half of the season. We've all complained that we've not had many options. I don't think even 3 signings is going to be, enough in January. I think we should be looking even further than that. But what I also want is the existing players that are there to be playing, at the peak of their powers, or as well as we've possibly seen now. It wasn't just Leo Abada who scored, for example, but speaking of players playing with confidence, talk to me about Near Bitton's form right now. Now, he's been at the club. He's nearly coming up for a testimonial year, I'm sure, in 2022. I think he signed in 2012, I'm sure of it, which is baffling. But he seems to be playing better than ever for Celtic. And I'm beginning to wonder, Ange Postecoglou has one hell of a knack for, improving players that he's got at his disposal. And Near Bitton's been a case in point, Jonathan.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would say near Bitton, a lot of people probably in the last couple of years would have been too disheartened if he'd been shown the door. He was more of a utility man, playing centre-half really more than in his actual natural position for the last number of years. It's quite interesting to actually see him and refreshing to see him getting a chance back in the holding midfield role, because that is undoubtedly his best position for me, rather than playing across the back line.
I think that experiment just doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work at centre half for me either. I think he's obviously came on leaps and bounds. I think Ange has gotten his belief back. I thought against St Johnstone, he was actually one of our best players, quite comfortably. Him and Roger, particularly in the midfield, were excellent. I think the fact that Ange trusts him with the captaincy, again, going back to your point about him being here for such a length of time, and it doesn't really seem to faze him. He's always a pretty cool customer, Bitton, and I think, you know, at the moment you wouldn't have him out the team. He's probably one of the first players you'd actually pick to put in the team, which goes to show how far it's actually came with him over the past even 12 months, because you would never have had 12 months ago turning around thinking, I knew a Bitton as a key player for the starting 11, but I think he's actually played himself into contention in that.
I think the thing is with Bitton's been guilty of playing within himself too often. Too many negative passes for me. But just being a holding midfielder does not mean that you've got to play the ball sideways. It's not all about that. Yes, there's a huge emphasis on breaking up the play, and your more creative players get the ball to them as quick as possible. But if they're standing 20 yards in front of you, then play that pass. And I just think Bitton's playing really positively right now. I think he's playing, as I say, he was within himself before, and now he seems to be trying to express himself. I mean, just the sight of him scoring alone is statement for me that, Bitton's confidence is going back. And look where he's took the shot from, just inside the St Johnstone box. Now Bitton wasn't getting in opposition boxes, Jonathan, even when he was playing as a holding midfielder. But I do agree with Martin Kelly coming in. And thanks for watching, Martin. As always, Bitton in his natural position is more confident. A run of games, definitely, in his more natural position. And I just think a manager who believes in him and is telling him to go out there and express himself a bit is having a huge impact on him as well. And, it's brilliant, again, like I'm saying, to have another option in that midfield area that perhaps we didn't consider as an option the first few months of the season. And yeah, that's all down to the hard work of Postecoglou and, of course, the players underneath him. Paul Cockwell, you've started early today, my man. He says my brother talks sense.
Cheers, Paul.
That's it.
You're £5 out from the post, yeah.
The player is far better in his natural position, says Stephen Findlay. This is hardly news. I would have been better in midfield as well. Well, that is an interesting talking point. Yeah, it's hardly news. I think, to be honest with you, the near Bitton experiment was over for me, Stephen. So I've got to push back a wee bit. I wouldn't have had him anywhere near first team affairs right now. And a wee bit like Jonathan does say, after all, if he wants to, the jersey's in his hands right now, and I'm not actually all against it, which shows you how funny football can turn. Or maybe I was being a bit harsh on him, Stephen. You never know. Just try to catch up with all the comments coming in. Thanks as always. It's what makes the show work so well. The Monday Club is an open forum for everyone watching. Anything under 6 decent players in the window is unacceptable. I mean, yeah, absolutely. It's been brilliant to see, obviously, like I say, the fringe players or players playing lacking in confidence, maybe now growing into the role. Although that's not an excuse not to invest in the squad, Michael. So I'm on your side with that. I think it's very important that we still recognise the squad is too short in numbers to realistically challenge for the title. I think, the title, we're the team 6 points behind right now. End of story, whether we like it or whether we don't. So I absolutely agree with that. I think 6 decent players is what you're going to be looking for. But to flip it and put it back to you, Michael, I have a question. And would that mean the signings of Jota and CCV on permanent contracts? Would you take that as 2 of your 6? Or would you see that as very much, still 6 on top of those 2? But I think, to be positive, the stories that are emanating the past couple of days, Jonathan, they seem to be very positive that both Jota and Cameron Carter-Vickers may sign permanently in January. Does that pleasantly surprise you?
Well, it's certainly interesting if they decide to sign them both, because that would be quite an outlay of cash for this Celtic board, if you think about it, because I think you're looking at £7 million for each of them. So, you're going to be looking at, potentially up to about 14-15 million once you add the add-ons and everything else onto those potential deals. Yep. It's a big outlay. If they were to do that bit of business, and I think the fans would be extremely happy with that. And then, if you add in the fact that it looks like the Japanese trio are coming in, according to all reports, everything looks positive there, then that would take you up to 5. And I would probably say you've had a pretty strong window there, provided nobody is going out the other way to compensate for it. And that's what this board does have a knack of doing. And it's always something that I'm suspicious about when they start spending a bit more money, is the fact that they might decide to cash in one of their chips and try and get some cash back into the old bank account. But if you were asking me just now, I think any fan who's been watching Celtic this season would turn around and say Carter Vickers and Diogo Jota would be excellent additions to the team. They've been 2 absolute standout players. Carter Vickers is just an absolute man-mountain. Looks as if you can barely barge him off the ball. And everyone's seen the contributions that Jota's made and how big a difference he could make when he's fully fit, and the fact that we now will hopefully have him available once the winter break is over.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, the thing is with the board, it's easy to criticise them, right? And we're always going to hold. I think I'm going to, this is the way I like to think of the bus, right? If the manager gets a rubbish result, we'll hold the manager to account. If the board try and scrimp and save in a window, or, do smoke and mirror appointments like Nicholson and stuff like that, then we're going to hold them to account. But when Ange gets it right, I'm going to praise him. And when the board get it right, I'm going to praise them. Obviously, January hasn't actually came round yet, so we're not going to get too carried away. But the signs are good that January could be a positive January transfer window, perhaps for the first time in the best part of a decade. And that's not an exaggeration. January to me has been a huge letdown as a Celtic fan, with loan players coming in from the EPL, hastily made at the end of the window, never at the beginning. But if stories are to believe, we're going to be equipped with 3 J-League players, which unquestionably mean all identified by Ange, not identified by the board or forced upon him, which we all now, I think, if we look at, I know Ange spoke positively about James McCarthy's influence around the place and things like that. But if we just take a step back, he does look more and more like he was a signing made by Celtic, not Ange. I think we can take that from the amount of appearances McCarthy's made and such as his, how slow his progress has been, albeit with a depleted squad he can't get in the first team. But the J-League players, to me, strike me as signings that have to be Ange signings. And if the board, albeit they might think, well, that's a relatively cheap, risk-free market, and look at what Kyogo's done, so it's all going to work like that. If they think like that, then, they're being a wee bit naive. But I agree. 3 J-League signings isn't enough. I agree with what Atom Mike's saying. I think that's how... Atomic Destructor saying Atom Mike. Oh my God.
Atomic
Destructor. Sorry, Atomic. I prefer the name Atomic. That's better anyway. So, yeah, you lost my train of thought there. But I agree. I don't think 3 J-Leaguers is enough either. We went down a wee bit of a parallel universe, Jonathan, on Christmas Day. It was good fun. And we were talking about the need for it needing to be, as much as we want Ange to identify his players and signings, I've got a hunch that in the 5 months Ange Postecoglou's been here, such as his eye for a player, he may well already identified one within the SPFL. I would like to think so. And if it were me, that person would be Martin Boyle. We had a good chat about that the other day. It's not me telling Ange who to sign or thinking I know better or anything like that. But as a wee opinion piece, I think Martin Boyle is a standout player in the country that I would look to add as well, just in case the 3 J-Leaguers do, as we expected, to be fair, with Kyogo. We've all been surprised at how quickly he's settled in. We all expected, well, don't expect too much from a guy coming from the J-League instantly. We can't now flip that and expect the other 3 to hit the ground running at the rate Kyogo has. But the good thing is, if you bring in from your own league, and we all know, we can all tell, Ange is going to be sussing this league out and looking about for players, just like he has from his former league, brought in players with him. He'll now be looking at rival teams within the Scottish League as well and thinking, maybe you could do a job. or maybe he's not been particularly impressed, who knows. But either way, I think he will certainly have considered buying from within the league. And do you think that's going to be important as well, to get guys that can hit the ground running? I'm not saying the 3J leaguers won't, but there's obviously a risk involved. Would it make more sense to, as well as the 3J leaguers, then maybe bring in a couple that are more local, shall we say, in the transfer market?
Yeah, I could definitely see the argument to do that, because if you know what you're getting, if you do shop domestically, if you know what the players are all about, you know, and it goes back to that old cliche saying that we like to use a lot, that they get it and they understand the importance of playing for a Celtic football club. A lot of these players, we've seen it work in the past windows, particularly the one where they signed Barry Robson in Strachan's season, and Robson and
that's a great example. It's a great example.
Pretty much carried Celtic to that championship, and that's not because they were particularly technically gifted players. I mean, they were good technical players.
Bad though. They weren't bad.
Nah, they weren't bad, but they were not like the Nakamuras of that era. They were more there to get stuck in and really just understand how Scottish football works and be able to adapt to that physical aspect, which, when you're bringing players over from the other side of the world, it's only natural that you'd expect them to take a bit of time. Kyogo is probably one of the exceptions to the rules. I think you have to expect that when these Japanese players do come in, if indeed they do, that it will take a little bit of time for them to get up to speed with everything. Hopefully I'm wrong and they're able to hit the ground running, but natural human-like behaviour, if you're going across the world, completely different climate, completely different league to what you're used to playing in, you have to be a little bit more patient. The problem with Celtic at the moment is when you're chasing a championship and you're already 6 points behind, is do you have the time to really be patient on these players?
Yeah, I mean, we will be patient with the players as individuals, but in terms of the team and what the team's going to do, we might need to just then accept that they might need to be brought out sometimes and play someone full of confidence. And I think the Martin Boyle argument is compelling. Jim Brown, though, comes in and this is what it's all about. I don't like to repeat myself, but it is, because Jim's got a different idea. And I'm all for discussing that as well, Jim. So welcome on. He would swap the pace for strength in search of a centre forward. So it's not Boyle for Jim. One more like Giakoumakis is supposed to be. So the amount of crosses you put in and no one to finish them. Two arguments with that. I watched Giakoumakis play up top in the Livingston game, Jonathan. We were both at that. Yeah. And the thing was, whilst he probably didn't have the best game of his life either, I remember saying to you, there's too much of these wishy-washy, floaty crosses getting played in. I actually think the quality of crosses, and I don't want to single people out, but New Ralston would have limitations going forward slightly. And I don't think his final ball's great, but what a season he's having. I'm not criticising him individually. Juranovic, I expected more from what I've seen from his final ball. Just my honest opinion. Greg Taylor's always been a wee bit ropey, despite last year he seemed to be the top assists for any of the fullbacks. I think he finished season with 8 or 9. But it never feels like that watching him. Maybe that's just me being prejudgmental. But the Giakoumakis one, yes, we wanted to mix it up top. And I've said on this show, we've got to have a different plan. B can't be plan A all the time. But the thing is, Giakoumakis hasn't been fit. And Ange might be looking at it out and going, well, now I nearly get to January. Why don't I just have more options for the way I want to play? And if I can take a Kyogo out and replace the Maeda, it's a straight swap, similar ability. He might think, well, that now gives me more options to do my plan A all over again, because what we have to say is Andrew's going to be very stubborn with plan A. He's made no apologies for it. I'm only agreeing with what he's actually said, by the way, but he only wants to play one way. And you might find that, Jim, another physical striker, Ange might go, well, it's not really worked with Giakoumakis. And you might find that he goes down the road of more pace and more players already in the mould that what's brought him success this season when they've all been, fit and allowing. Scott Howe comes in, and he's not the only one to say how excited he is by the look of Maeda. He thinks he's going to be the bargain of the year. He hopes he hits the ground running like King Kyogo. I mean, I think it's a great point. I think Maeda does look like a top player. Ian McIntosh agrees with you. Obviously, on YouTube, though, if we just calm the expectations slightly, is I've yet to see a player look bad on YouTube. But I also, I think deep down, I actually do agree with what Scott's saying. I think the highlights reel from him. The fact he was top scorer in a league. Someone was saying just earlier in the comments, Fender Telly, it was good to have you with us as well, mate. And he was saying that the J League's a far better standard, I think he was saying there, than the SPFL level. So you know, when you're seeing Maeda, finish joint top scorer in that league, you're seeing the various types of goals that he can score. You're seeing his electric pace. 2-footed he looks as well. Jonathan colours into the far corner with both his left and his right. Are we going to need to try and dampen expectations because of the culture shift? Or should we be looking at this and going, no, they're going to come with a professionalism, a hunger, a desire like Kyogo's, and we can be confident these guys can hit the ground running and, play huge roles in winning this title back. I'm excited by what Ange's going to bring to us over the J League. I know it's not just Maeda. We know we looked at, Hatate seems to be done. They all seem done deals, which is so bizarre, but it's exciting. The Hatate one, and Ideguchi's already played in the UK, albeit he had 2 loan spells in Europe from Leeds, but that should also help his settling in period, albeit it wasn't a positive experience perhaps in England that he had. The fact is he knows what to expect from the culture. He knows what, even though he was loaned out twice, he must have been in Leeds for a considerable period at some point, just even living there, as you said, on a human level. So you would like to think he might be able to adapt a bit quicker. I think they're exciting signings, but I don't think they're enough.
No. Well, I guess we'll soon find out. I think you'd like to think that the Celtic board will continue to strengthen if they can find the players available. What I would say, I guess, in the Celtic board's defence with the January window is, generally speaking, it is a more difficult window to get right than the summer one, because a lot of clubs are unwilling to sell halfway through their own respective seasons. I get with the J League it's a little bit different because I believe their season actually is finished, or is finishing in the next couple of weeks. To touch back on the actual potential abilities of the players in question that it looks like we're going to sign, Maeda's goals look astonishingly good on YouTube. And I know YouTube's just one way of looking at things, but there's even one in there that's like, it's a chip price similar to almost what Kyogo did in the League Cup final. It's that good. And you're just like, well, if we've got another one like that on the way in, then it does breed optimism. I think as well, when you're looking at it, obviously we don't know, they're unknown qualities in terms of how they adapt to coming over to Scottish football. But again, I think the key to that, from our point of view, is you've got to trust the manager here. And I think the one thing Ange has done is he has got the trust of the supporters. And if he believes these players can do a job and they can come in and they can hit the ground running, then I think as fans, we have to trust his management and his decisions based on that. And I'm actually pretty excited to see them come in. But I would agree with you, if they could get 1 or 2 more over the line in January, then that would be a huge statement of intent. But I wouldn't be altogether surprised if it turns out to be the 3 Japanese boys and they maybe look to get Carter Vickers and Jota permanent deals done, and that might be the business closed for January.
Well, there's Mick coming in with another shout. Pre-contract could probably get him at a nominal fee. Mick Menemy, thanks for watching it. And I know Scott Howe's agreeing with you. I've seen that already in the comments too. John Suter, Jonathan, we could be getting for buttons, let's be honest. Or wait till the summer. But I mean, if you were looking at ramping it up at the competition at the back, John Suter's, obviously on a high this season, scoring for Scotland when he was brought back in. It's a bit of a fairy tale story for him after serious injury. He's heavily linked with Blackburn Rovers right now, who have apparently made an approach. I mean, I don't think, if I'm honest, we should be letting guys like John Suter slip under the radar. I think it's affordable, it's low risk. He comes in with the league he knows inside out, and he's going to a similar level to what he's leaving, if not a better one at the Championship. I mean, I just don't see why we should be letting players like that, slip out the back door. I mean, I've been far more convinced, shall we say, by the John Suter argument than I ever was with, what was the boy's name at Aberdeen? Scott thingy.
Scott McKenna.
Forest, Scott McKenna. And Celtic bid £4 million for him. 4 million. You could be looking at getting a John Souttar 4 years later for $500,000. It would probably cost to get him in January. And this is what I mean. A wee sprinkle of SPFL. If this is me now doing Ange's transfer list for him, you know what I mean? But I'm like, 3 guys for the J League, a Martin Boyle, a John Souttar, the £6 million signing a Jota, 5 to 3, 5, 10, however much £1 million Carbon and Carter Vickers is costing, because there's been various reports on what his fee is actually going to be. But if we was to get a window that looked a bit like that I've just kind of dreamt up there, I would say that would be entering territory, being more back than any manager in a single transfer window down to the Martin O'Neill years. Because 2 6 million players, say roughly, because that's me meeting in the middle. Cameron Carter Vickers either 3 million or 10. Let's say he's going to be 5, 6 million. Jota, we know, is what, 6.5, something like that. That's the best. It's £12.5 million right there. Then you're looking at getting 5, 6 million spent on the 3 guys from the J League. And then if you were to get the other couple from the SPFL, I think there's another couple of million there. You're looking at the meat and bones of £20 million spent in January, which would be astonishing, really. And at that, even the thought of something like that excites me. And I think for too long, Celtic have not speculated to accumulate. Like, oh no, 20 million in January could mean 20 million profit just by winning the league. So, do you know, it's all paid back. Go and win the league. Give Ange the tools. But yeah, what's your thoughts on the John Souttar one?
Yeah, I think that'll be an interesting move. It feels like it's a bit of a no-brainer when he's coming towards the end of his contract. So certainly take a chance on him and see if he can make the grade. I think he certainly came on leaps and bounds since he's came back from injury. Souttar, he would have no problem, as we've already touched upon, adapting to playing for Celtic because he would know what to expect. I guess the only argument, if you were to bring him in as centre-half position at Celtic Park, is probably
Jim Brown, as long as he's not costing £80 million.
I'm inclined to agree with Jim on that one.
He better not cost.
Good take.
Yeah, but I mean, 500 grand, 80 million, you know.
But just to touch on John Souttar, I would say the only issue you maybe have with Souttar is if you bring him in, the centre-half area is actually probably Celtic's strongest area in the squad, I would say, just now, particularly if they did sign Carter Vickers on a permanent deal. You'd have him, you'd have a Swedish international in Starfelt. You've got Christopher Julian, who should be back fairly soon, you'd like to see him, thinking anyway, even though we've been saying this now for a number of months with Julian. Maybe his career is just going to stagnate now with this injury. But you've got those 3 already. He's got to try and get past that, actually get in the first team. I think Welsh's actually looked really good as well when he's played, and I think he'd be a bit unlucky to be falling further down the pecking order at centre-half. So it would be interesting. I'd probably bring him into the mix, Souttar, because there's very low risk there, and it could end up being extremely high reward. But he would need to work extremely hard for me if he was going to break into the first 11.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. I think he would need to work hard, but I also, to flip it is, you've then got a situation where you're looking at John Souttar in a year's time shining at Blackburn Rovers and costing £10 million doing a Jack Hendry, or what's this thing? It was Jack Hendry, wasn't it?
Jack Hendry was on in Belgium, aye.
The one in Belgium. And before you know it, you've just let him slip under the radar because, he was under our nose, literally in the club, of course. And I just feel that could happen. But hopefully not. Hopefully not. I'm just trying to catch up with whoever else has came in the comments. I think it was Gallant by Pioneer. I know we support different teams, but it's all good. He was talking about what Hugh Keevan said. He said he couldn't see Rangers losing between now and the end of the season, and 1 loss in 59 backs that up. I think we need to be aware of, obviously, the competition we're up against. I don't play that down. I take your point, Gallant Pioneer. Michael, Jonathan Budge, you need to up your game regarding the clobber. You've really inherited a good dress sense, Gene. Have a look in Russell's cover. Superb, mate. Superb.
I'll look out a nice sippy for you next time, Michael.
Yeah, we'll work on that, mate. It's a work in progress, Michael. Takes years. Feed the Bear comes in and he says, afternoon, good to have you with us. I seen Alex Forsyth was watching from his work as well, saying he was sorry he was late. Never need to apologise for being late on the Bhoycie bus. We were late too, Alex. Don't worry about it. I mean, obviously we're talking about strengthening the Celtic squad. Aribo at Rangers has been heavily, and I'm not, it's a Celtic pod and that, but this is a direct competition we're in, and they potentially could be weakened big time in January because, by all accounts, I don't spend a lot of time watching them, but by all accounts, it's on the radio, to the phone-ins of that, Aribo's been their player of the season so far, and he's been heavily linked with Aston Villa. For all the strength that Celtic could be doing, it would be nice to see a club that we all know can't really afford to replace like for like, lose some of their first team regulars in January as well. Aribo being a case in point. I know we don't want to focus on it too much, but would you see, judging by Rangers, apparently, yet again, we've got to say, perilous financial position. I don't know how it all works, but do you see them losing players in January, Jonathan? That may be helping Celtic's cause as well.
Yeah, well, I think January's going to be a big month for both clubs. As you touched upon, Celtic could end up spending up to about £20 million in this window. And there's only one club in Glasgow that has the capacity to spend that kind of money in this window, which can give you, dare I say it, a huge financial advantage over your rivals if the board were to pull the trigger on that. Across the city, it's well documented that they are not got as much resources to pull on financially as we do. There's every chance, in my opinion, they may look to sell somebody if the right offer comes in. It would certainly be a boost for us, I think, if they were to lose someone, because as you say, they have been in excellent form. You can't take that away from them. I think they've won their last 8 games or something. I think since Van Bronckhorst has came in, they've barely lost, they've barely dropped a point. I don't think they've dropped a point at all in the league. So we have to be extremely, extremely careful. And we can't underestimate Rangers. And yes, if they were to weaken their squad in January and sell someone, then of course I think that would be a boost for most Celtic fans.
Absolutely, absolutely. But again, I think we've kind of just decided to create our own, ideas that were going to happen in January. I'm kind of getting into the comments, but yeah, I mean, I think it's highly unlikely Celtic are going to spend 20 million whilst Rangers lose anyone for 20 million all in the one window. I think we've been talking about
transfer window we're carrying.
It's a bit of a fantasy transfer window we're doing right now. We're just diving into the imagination station, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I totally take on the point that it came in. I think it was Arthur Goat who had said it's all ifs, buts, hopes, and maybes. Yeah, there's a bit of that. But you know what? It's just delving in to the imagination station and having a wee what if chat, because I think sometimes that's our divine right, in fact, as football fans, is it not? I think so. Okay, so the winter break was brought forward early. Now, we were talking earlier about the confidence you're seeing from your Bitton. Maybe a Bada coming back into full swing. Certainly looks more comfortable up top. Now, forget the rights and wrongs of the window. There seems to be a narrative forming. I know it's a lot of tongue-in-cheek, so Ange's chicken, right? Now, that's made me laugh. My honest opinion is that it's a tit for tat on the Giovanni Van Bronckhorst being short thing, right? So Ange's chicken and Giovanni Van Bronckhorst is 2 foot. That's all I think it is. It's just a wee ding-dong like that. Now, do you think there is a part, though, of Ange on the back of the win there that would have liked to have just kept on going with the players seemingly feeling pretty confident, unbeaten in the league in what, 18? Is it more than that now?
Yeah, Livingston away, I think, was the last
yeah,
wasn't it?
Ages. So I think it'll be interesting to see if just purely in a footballing sense, if it actually would have been what Celtic would have wanted was to stop the flow of games, because obviously we know they all get bunched together. But you never know. I just think that with the window, I think it was the logical suggestion. I think it made sense. I think all the other clubs were on board with it. Do you think though in a football, just watching the football, that the Celtic players or manager would have actually wanted the window at this time? Or do you think he's actually saying, right, we've left it with a win, now we look to rebuild, we've got 3 weeks to do so, and Ange's already quoted as saying on Sunday, he won't be having one day off in the winter break, mate. So there you go. What do you think?
I think it certainly helps Celtic in the sense that they are down to their bare bones in terms of players. So it will give them more opportunities to have more of their first team players available when the game resumes. You know, it's a difficult one though, because they have been playing reasonably well. St Mirren game aside, it was a bit disappointing, a bit drab. That they could have potentially won it against Rangers with a full Celtic park, even without having all of their key players fit. I mean, even when you go and push things forward now and look into the new year, in 3 weeks' time or 4 weeks' time, we play Rangers on the 2nd of February. You might still be in a position where you don't have Kyogo, you don't have Roderick available anyway, because I believe there's World Cup qualifiers that are due on around the same time, which they could end up being called up for, and you're in the same position where you don't actually have your top players available, albeit granted you have then had the January window to strengthen. I think because of the fact Celtic are short on bodies, the fact that gives them those 4 weeks in January to strengthen the squad, I think it does benefit Celtic having the games pushed back. However, it was a decision that was ultimately taken out of everybody's hands when the government decided they were locking football down. Essentially, I think it was a no-brainer. We had to move it, because it's not fair on the football fans ultimately to not be able to get in and see their clubs play, which is what it's really all about.
Yeah, and I mean, it's brilliant because obviously we know that Rangers echoed that sentiment by postponing the B team match. So it's good that everyone's on board and singing from the same, as Charlie Nicholas would say, the same spreadsheet. Atomic Destructor comes in again and he's saying, Karamoko coming back soon. Shouldn't his contract be sorted out? Because that ends this summer. Now, I think that's a brilliant debating point, because the thing is with this is Karamoko Dembele realistically hasn't done enough in the first team, or in the first team, you know, in the squads to warrant a new deal, really. But we know he was a prodigal talent. We know he was someone being absolutely, rated since he'd been burst on the scene at 13, 14 years old, and he was playing for England under 16s and things like that. And you can't help but think, despite the injuries, he also had some poor management before, who didn't know how to utilise him. He probably felt his career, if he'd been 2 years older, Rodgers would have been the perfect guy to have been working with him. Do you know what I mean? He was just probably that wee bit younger. And that is a shame, because I think right now, Dembele's someone that has got a big 6 months ahead, and I'm not sure that I think with giving him the new contract, the thing is, I don't think there'll be a huge amount of competition for his signature at this moment in time. I think he's
kind of forgotten man now, isn't he? Really?
Yeah, which is mad, because we're talking about is it 19? Maybe just turned 20. He's 19 or 20. You know, he's a forgotten man. He's almost like, he's got his whole career ahead of him still. I mean, a lot of players don't even make their first team debut till, Callum McGregor made his first team debut for Celtic at 21. So it's mad when you think about it like that. I can't see any way that Celtic at this moment in time can afford to let Dembele just slip out the door on a free. But what I also would say is, I think he's got a wee bit of work to do before we start considering him to be a player to have much of a say, for example, in this title race in the first team. I don't think Karamoko Dembele is someone, again, I think it's going to be an easing in period for him, and, heavily rotated, and you might just see him getting 5-10 minutes here and there. What sort of impact he's going to have now at the end of the season that could actually, shall we say, impact on the league, or impact on whether he should be rewarded with a new deal, I think is minimal. To me, I think he might get a shorter term contract, say another year added on, maybe a bit incentive based, and it's a real shame, because Karamoko Dembele, we genuinely all thought we had a world beater on our hands and someone that was going to go on to, play top 4 England or play for a Barcelona. That was genuinely how highly he was getting rated. It's not even like we're exaggerating here. It's just been such a pity it's not worked out like that. But
it's one of those ones, Russell, that if you were to flip it and you could look at Karamoko Dembele, you've got to wonder, would he even want to stay at Celtic? Because he'll probably be looking at things over the last year or two, and we all know that the coaching standards at the club prior to Ange coming in, the players were by and large all regressing. Karamoko Dembele, I would imagine, was probably in the same bracket even before he got injured. And he might well be having a look at it and thinking, well, this football club has not helped me get to where I want to be as a player. Do I want to gamble, spending a year, 2 year, granted we're under new coaches, or do I take a plunge and go and test my wits potentially down south or elsewhere? It'll be interesting.
Terry's coming in, Jonathan. Terry's coming in and he's basically agreeing with what you're saying there, I think, right? Or agreeing with that theory. But my point on it would be, where's Karamoko Dembele going to get first team football right now? If we don't think he can get in the Celtic team, I don't think he's going to be going to any promised land of the EPL anytime soon. I think he'll be going in, EPL's obviously have their B teams now. I think he'll be looking at a B team EPL, or he'll be in the English Championship, which is going to be a right tough league to stand out in when you've been out for as long as what he has, and you've not really got any first team football experiences at all. So I think we need to be, you need to think of that one and go, I don't think he's got all that options. And maybe if he has become a wee bit disillusioned, the thing is, he might just look at it and, like I'm saying, go, a 1 year extension here might not be the worst thing all round. But I don't think the clubs queuing up for him would quite be as attractive as what they, potentially he would like to have thought a couple of years ago when his star was very much rising. Right, what other? So Fender Telly comes in. Another talking point, another discussion point. Big Fender, thanks for that. Julien or Starfelt, Bhoycie, I'd rather none of them. He thinks that position needs serious work. I think Starfelt is unfairly judged at times. I think other times he's fairly judged, if I'm honest. I think it can go a wee bit over the top with Starfelt, but I don't think he helps himself at times. Julien, we all know, I think can definitely play. I think he definitely, can come in and be the first team centre back. But it's going to be a different Christopher Julien based on the fact he'll have been over a year without a first team game again. And that's tricky. You were talking about Stephen Welsh, Jonathan. You think it'd be quite harsh on him if another centre half was brought in. I'm of the opinion that we need the competition in there. And I think I think for that area of the park, because you've got a 7 million Julien, a £4 million Carl Starfelt, I think to add in a $500,000 sort of John Suter would be the sort of price range if we were going to bring another centre back. But it might ease the load a wee bit there. It might ease the load. I know there's a lot of debate going in the comments, a wee bit of to and fro. As long as it's all getting kept clean, I'll be happy. I will be spending half an hour after the show finishes to go through every single comment that's came up. So I don't want to get down the road of blocking. I think it has all been relatively good-natured. Be sure to flag it. Anyone's welcome to DM me on Twitter if they think anything has crossed the line, and we'll check that. But from what I can see, and it's not easy to keep up with all, it seems to be of a decent level, and that is going to be essential because the Bhoycie bus is a positive place, I accept that people support different teams. That's fine. Where are you, though, Jonathan, on Starfelt and Julien? And do you think they're in a straight shootout to partner Cameron Carter-Vickers?
Well, yeah, I would say Carter-Vickers, if you sign him permanently, is going to be a number one centre-back. And they should be signing him permanently. Julien, for me, it's all really about whether or not you can unlock the Christopher Julien of old. Because Julien, in his first season, was powerful. He was scoring. He must have been close to double digits from goals from corners. He was scoring it with big goals. Yeah. Christopher Julien as well, which was a side to his game that we don't really see from either Carter-Vickers or Carl Starfelt at this time. We don't really score a lot from set pieces, and Julien does bring that to his game that none of the other centre halves do. Granted, it's not the most important element of their job, but for me, Julian would be the first choice centre back. It's all about whether or not they can actually get him fit, first choice in terms of between him and Starfelt. And I do think if you put him and Carter Vickers together, then that is a very powerful, strong combination potentially there. Obviously, the concern you do have with Julian is he's been out for so long now, you just don't know what you're going to get when he actually comes back, and it may well be a case that his career is now on a downward trajectory and it's got no point, it's past the point of return. But that'll all be proven over the next few weeks, and I'd be with you in the sense that you could potentially end up having to look at bringing in somebody like a John Suter as another option as backup that can be done relatively cheaply and at minimal risk to upsetting anyone.
Yeah, I mean, I've still got a bit of faith in Julian, and Gallant Pioneers said Starfelt has mistakes in him, even the most diehard Celtic will admit that. I think we do. I mean, I feel that the thing is, I would say with that is I think sometimes he goes too far and he becomes like the whipping boy at the back sort of thing. And then other times he doesn't help himself, like the red card the other week. I just thought it was stupid, it was needless. But then again, I felt people couldn't wait to get, studs up and go 2-footed on him. I don't mean players, I mean like fans. With their critique. So it's a balance one with Starfelt, and again, it's been a strange career trajectory he's had. The thing is with Chris Julian to me is someone that at 28, 29 has had an injury that's kept him out a similar period of time to Henrik Larsson did at that age. We are not comparing them in terms of ability. What I'm trying to say, completely different positions anyway, but Henrik actually came back a better player. That is the weirdest thing, and I know you could say that's a one-off, but who's to say Julian doesn't hit the ground running? I've always got the vibe of Julian as well. He is going to thrive being the experienced campaigner at the back, if you like, being the sort of the leader of the back line, because you're looking at it, Juranovic came in with experience, but I think it's in a straight shootout with a 22-year-old Tony Ralston, 23-year-old Tony Ralston at right back. Greg Taylor's 23, 24. Liam Scales, 23. You're then looking at Stephen Welsh, 21. Starfelt's 26, but still finding his feet a wee bit, as we all know. And Carter Vickers is only 23. I think Julian coming in is 29, 30 years old at the back. I think he'll fancy that role. And I think whenever he's been given a wee bit more responsibility, Julian's done well.
I think it's a brilliant point as well, because the one thing you could say about the Celtic starting 11 is there isn't a lot of leaders in the team. There's a nice comment coming in there. But it's like you look across the Celtic team and, outside of McGregor, and obviously Joe Hart's been an inspiration, I think, in that part of his game, that he can actually be vocal and help galvanise the players on. I do think Julian's of a similar mould to both of them, potentially vice-captain, could easily captain Celtic, Julian, if he can get back to his best. So I do think you've got to look at it and think from a leadership standpoint, it's actually much needed from Celtic, because there isn't enough vocal players in that starting 11 for me, particularly when you consider Scott Brown leaving in the summer and the chasm that he's left behind that's had to be filled.
No worries. No, that makes sense about Julian. We've got Paul McFarlane coming in. He's saying hi to Jonathan and the passengers, and he hopes you're all having a good-natured debate. Army has been. He says he's visiting his mum at the moment. Bhoycie, have a good one. Yep, best wishes, Paul. Make sure you tell your mum I am asking for her as always, mate. It comes Dead-Eye Del Boy. Is there any truth in the rumour that the other pod want to re-sign you in a sensational January? I think there's more chance of me getting into North Korea with a world peace sign than getting into...
It'd be more shocking than the Mo Johnson saga all those years ago.
I can't see that ever happening, mate. I cannot see that ever happening. Julian, though, the problem, and beyond the beaten track, does make a fair point here, is that Julian will end up getting injured again. That's got to be a concern too. You're absolutely right. I mean, you would like to think that he won't, but it can happen. I mean, it can happen. You would hope that he's going to get that run of games that he desperately needs. And I think what they've tried to do is be a wee bit more careful with him than what they have with other players in the past. And I'm not saying they've necessarily always rushed players back, Jonathan, but what you would have to say with Julian was he was October, what seemed to be the general consensus was going to be his target comeback date. We're now getting to late December. Celtic posted a tweet 3-4 days ago saying for a few weeks, but we're delighted to see Chris Julian back in training, or words to that effect. And I think that's really good. That is exciting times, and I think they are definitely trying to manage him in. So when he comes in, he's got the best possible chance, because Ange might be looking at someone like Julian and thinking, you're going to be key for me, in the second half of the season if I can get you fit. It'll be interesting to see what happens. We've been on for 55 minutes. It has been an impromptu 3 p.m. show today. We apologise for being a couple of minutes late. It happens. And apologies again for last night for everyone who was expecting us to come on. It just wasn't going to happen. And we thought we would treat you with a wee afternoon show today. So why not? What we will do as well... That's it, mate. That's it. Keep everyone guessing, man. Well, what we will do is we will come back tomorrow night for some Championship Manager, some more fantasy football, me making up crazy transfers, and then we'll be back on Friday or Saturday. Friday's it's New Year's Day. Yeah, it's going to be a couple of weeks till the Double Doon show's back, but I might do something at the New Year's Day. I think we'll come back on and we'll give you some patter, and then we'll do the Monday Club as well, obviously the following Monday. Try to keep up with the days here. It's not easy. Anyway, thanks to everyone who's left comments. I hope it's all been clean. I'm going to check them all just now, but it seems like everyone's getting on fairly well, and I like that. We don't all need to agree. Life would be boring if we did. If they're just jokes, then that's fine. Jonathan, thank you so much for your contributions as ever on the Monday Club, especially on a Tuesday. And we will see you all later on the Bhoycie bus. Back tomorrow, 9 o'clock. And we'll do a wee CM0102 feed. If you haven't already hit subscribe, do please hit the subscribe button, no matter what team you support. Give us a wee like. It can help the channel grow as well. I'm shite at all this stuff, so we'll just end it there. See you later. Cheers.
Cheers.